With the third pick, the New York Jets select Sam Darnold.
Throws at the front right pylon. He's got a Jet touchdown.
Doggy, this little kid is not making mistakes.
There's so many question marks with Cleveland. I would prefer Green Bay or Houston for him.
That's something that happens when we have joint practices.
I said to the family, the university owes you an apology.
University of Maryland killed my nephew.
There is nothing more important than our student athletes' safety.
Some tough moves by Janae Ogumake.
The Las Vegas Aces were issued a forfeit.
You can't play in those conditions.
They need to be treated like NBA teams.
Whalen. Oh, what a pass! That is pretty.
What you see may change your perception of any sporting event. Get this, shoot this.
I'm Kate Bagan, sitting in for Bob Lee. The University of Maryland has accepted responsibility for the death of football player Jordan McNair. That is today's big story. On June 13th, the 19-year-old lineman died from heat stroke 2 weeks after being admitted to the hospital following an outdoor workout. On Tuesday in College Park, Maryland President Wallace Lowe said the following.
The university accepts legal and moral responsibility for the mistakes that our training staff made on that fateful workout day of May the 29th, which of course led subsequently to his death.
In addition, the school parted ways with strength and conditioning coach Rick Court, reportedly paying him a hefty sum of $315,000. And Lowe and Maryland athletic director Damon Evans said they also paid a visit to McNair's family in Baltimore.
I said to the family, the university owes you an apology. You entrusted Jordan to our care, and he is never returning home again.
Discrepancies still exist between Maryland and the McNair family regarding the timeline around their son's death. McNair had a temperature of 106 degrees when admitted to the hospital, but there are still question marks about what the school did between the end of the workout at 5 p.m. and McNair's admittance an hour later.
We have learned that Jordan did not receive appropriate medical care, and mistakes were made by some of our athletic training personnel. Second, the care we provided was not consistent with best practices. And third, that heat illness was not promptly identified or treated. Our athletic training staff did not take Jordan's temperature and did not apply a cold water immersion treatment.
Questions still exist around the future of Maryland head coach DJ Durkin, who remains on administrative leave. Since McNair's death, the university has given more training to athletic training staff and increased the number of breaks and cooling stations during practice. Offensive coordinator Matt Canada is serving as the Terps' interim coach.
Our culture right now is great. Our culture right now is awesome. Our kids are excited to practice, excited to play. They're loving each other. At times, are we grieving for Jordan? We are. But our culture right now is really, really good. And our staff is working to continue to make it better.
We are now joined by ESPN college football senior writer Heather Dinich, who's spent much of the week in College Park. Heather, you were at yesterday's press conference and today's practice, and you've had your pulse on this story from the beginning. What's the latest?
Well, Kate, as we heard, interim head coach Matt Canada invited the media to practice this morning, and he spoke with reporters for about 5 minutes. Players were running out onto the field, and I can tell you there are 2 giant white cooling tents on the practice fields, one for offense, one for defense. They are taking 2 breaks today. Matt Canada said that they will have Gatorade for the players, water, snacks. I watched as one of the staff members drove a Gator on with several bags of ice and began pouring them into buckets where they have these cooling fans set up to give the players a breeze. And quite honestly, these guys were jacked up. They had Will Smith's Summertime playing in the background. The music was pumped up. The players players were pumped up, and it was simply like any other college football practice I've ever been to. But I can certainly tell you that it is 180 degrees different from the tone of yesterday's jaw-dropping press conference.
Yeah, because at that press conference, Maryland said that a number of their officials went to meet with the McNair family. How did McNair's family react to that meeting and what was said to them?
Well, I haven't had a chance to speak with the McNairs personally. Tanya Wilson and Marty McNair are, as of right now, going through their attorneys for all of their statements. And Hassan Murphy, one of the managing partners there at Murphy, Falcon and Murphy, did release a statement on their behalf saying that they appreciated the apology. And I'm sure that they will have more things to say as things open up here. But I'm not so sure that a lawsuit still won't happen. So it will be interesting to see what legal repercussions come out of this, because as you heard yesterday, President Wallace Lowe said to a room full of reporters, we accept moral and legal responsibility for the mistakes that our athletic trainers made, ultimately that led to the death of Jordan McNair.
Yeah, you would think that the door is now wide open for a lawsuit. But let's focus now on the future of this team and the future of DJ Durkin, the head football coach who's on administrative leave. What are the next steps to determining what Durkin's future might be with the Terps?
Well, Wallace Lowe and athletic director Damon Evans both said yesterday that those people, DJ Durkin and the other staff members who are on administrative paid leave, deserve, quote, due process to let this external investigation play out. Those results from Walters Inc. are expected on September 15th. Maryland opens the season September 1st against Texas. And Kate, listen, given everything that was said at that press conference yesterday, given the serious tone, the remorse, and the way Damon Evans and Wallace Lowe spoke with such convictions, the only thing that would be more shocking to me than yesterday's press conference would be if DJ Durkin still has his job by that season opener.
All right, thanks, Heather. We are now joined on set by ESPN NFL analyst and former NFLer Ryan Clark, who has some unique insights into summer workouts and what happens in the heat on a football field. So let's stay in this Maryland story, Ryan. I mean, you and I were just even talking before the show about, as athletes, understanding the difference between a culture that is supportive of you as a person and a player, separate from how hard you might work during a workout.
Absolutely.
So what's your perspective as you look at this Maryland situation?
Well, obviously, from the outside looking in, you know that colleges train their players a certain way. They know they only have them for 3 or 4 years, and they're going to try to get the most out of them and work them to the bone. What's more disturbing is some of the reports you hear about the way their players were treated, the way those young men were handled, were talked to, were dealt with outside of the actual workout. You know, if it's scheduled, I'm going to run 24 110s, you know what that entails. You know it's going to be hot. You know you're going to have to be in shape to do those things. But to not be taken care of as a person is kind of what puts Coach Durkin's job at risk much more than this young man, to me, losing his life. And for your athletic director, for your school president to come out and take the type of accountability and have the responsibility of saying, not only legally, to me, morally, is the biggest thing, because these parents and these kids are entrusted to you and say, you can have my child for this time, and expect them to be taken care of.
Now, take us inside what it's like at one of these workouts, these outdoor workouts in the heat of the summer, when you might say you are running 24 110s.
Absolutely.
And as someone with sickle cell, that specifically also having to focus on how their body is reacting, like, what are the signs and symptoms, and what is that energy like? You know,
it's difficult, right? Because especially with myself, having to trade and having dealt with it a little more than most people, because mine's is kind of unique.
Yeah.
You never knew, and you never wanted to say that you were hurting more than the next man, or you never. It's hard to tell. Am I just tired? Is it just the workout's hard? Or am I getting myself to the point that Jordan got himself to, where you're putting your life in danger? And it's hard to go up to a coach and say, you know what, coach, this might be too much for me. Because then you think to yourself, I may not play. They may not think I'm in shape. They may not think I'm dedicated. And that's the culture of football in itself. That's the culture of sports. And so it is difficult. But when you walk in that day and they tell you this is what we're doing, your thought process is, I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish strong. I'm going to work. But you also think, if I get in a position to where I need help, the training staff is put together in a way, the training staff is trained in a way that they can take care of me. And by listening to the press conference yesterday, the training staff didn't do their job. And I don't necessarily think that's negligence on their part, but it is negligence on the school for not having them prepared to handle a situation like this.
Yeah, especially with a kid who did have that trait.
Absolutely.
Well. All right, let's shift to the NFL. Here's Josh Norman talking about Jets rookie quarterback Sam Darnold.
You go out here and you see him make these throws, I'm like, all right, that's not so much of a college level throw. He's like putting them on the money. But then you go to 7-on-7, it's like, all right, pass, catch here, right there. But dog it, this little kid is not making mistakes. And he's really accurate. So far, he's impressed me. And I didn't want him to. And that's the main thing. I wanted to break all rookies back.
You've been through many preseasons yourself. Like, what can we actually know about Darnold at this point?
Everyone was raving about his first preseason game. We were all excited. He threw a touchdown. He was 96 yards and all this. But this is more important. When you get to practice and you're practicing against another team, there's a lot of reps. There's a lot of opportunity for mistakes. And you heard Josh Norman say he's not making them. And we know Josh Norman well enough to know that he's not going to come out and praise a guy to lie.
That's true.
Right? He has nothing. He's not the type of guy that's going to say, I'm going to say good things about this person so people like me. He doesn't care that he's liked. He means this. He believes this. And so if you're a Jets fan, you have to be excited. Right? You were excited when he fell to you in the draft because everybody thought he was going to go number 1 to Cleveland. And now you're excited because you saw him play in the preseason game. But having these matchup against veteran players, veteran defenses, and excelling in them and impressing guys like Josh Norman is huge because these are the people that he's going to play on Sunday, not the guys he was working against in the preseason game last week.
Right. All right, I'm going to throw more quotes at you because we've got more defensive players coming out, like Jalen Ramsey.
My favorite.
Yeah, as he said to GQ here, I think Bill's draft pick, Josh Allen, is trash. I don't care what nobody say, he's trash, and it's going to show, too. That's a stupid draft pick to me. And then he went on to say even more things about, and even other NFL players. But Jalen Ramsey is suspended right now.
Right.
But he's also playing for a guy, Tom Coughlin, who doesn't seem like historically would put up like something like this. What do you think the ramifications are here? What's your response, first of all, and what are the ramifications?
Well, obviously, I don't think there's ramifications to what he said in GQ. He was doing an interview, and he was being honest. We've known Jalen for a very short time in the NFL, and he's always a guy that's going to put his feelings out there. He's going to say what he feels, and he's going to mean it. But when you think about the position of cornerback, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to necessarily draw that attention to yourself, but this guy does because he's that good. He doesn't want you to shy away. He wants you to come at him. He wants you to throw at him. And so when you ask him a question about Josh Allen, he gives you his honest opinion. When you ask him a question about Matt Ryan, he gives you his honest opinion because he ain't
scared. There's no downside, I guess.
There's no downside to him because he's like, what? That means they're going to throw the ball at me more?
Right.
Please do it. But when you think about Tom Coughlin and the way he has kind of a no-nonsense approach to football, that has to change in this age because these guys are different. This isn't your put your head down, come to work, and don't say anything generation. And Jalen Ramsey is an example of that. And you already see he's suspended for a week for attacking the media down in Jacksonville. And if you're going to start suspending Jalen Ramsey for the things he says and the stuff he does as far as social media and media is concerned, he may never play a game if you're sensitive to it.
All right, we got about 30 seconds, but I wanted your take on Des Bryant taking a visit to Cleveland and what you think about a potential marriage between.
I think that would be good. Obviously, Antonio Callaway has some issues, but he's a guy that's talented. Jarvis Landry would be the number 1 there until Josh Gordon could get back. Des Bryant is not the number 1 anymore. He's a guy who has to fit into a system, a guy who has to play a role, play a part. And if Des accepts that, I believe he can excel in that role. So you'll see him go to Cleveland, and if they decide that that's what they're going to do, and if he signs there, I think he's productive. But let's not think we're going to see the Dez of old. Right. This is going to be a new role and a new player if he decides to go to the Cleveland Browns.
All right, Ryan Clark, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, we are joined by an all-star to talk about the future of her league.
I'm a squeaky toy, and I've got one job, getting chomped on by this little ankle sniffer. So pardon me for feeling inept compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like while I'm getting slobbered on, Geico is creating cool technology like their mobile app, which lets people pay their bills or file a claim. Plus, Geico is the fastest growing auto insurer for the last 10 years. Is it too much for me to ask for one more feature? Fast and friendly claim service like Geico, maybe? Oh, great. I'm getting buried again.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Outside the Lines is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
All right, here's some more stuff that matters. A U.S. District Court judge dismissed a federal lawsuit from former Louisville coach Rick Pitino against Adidas. The judge agreeing that Pitino's endorsement deal dictated that disputes would be arbitrated in Oregon, where Adidas is headquartered. The suit claimed Adidas, quote, knowingly or recklessly caused emotional distress when its employees conspired to bribe the University of Louisville basketball recruits. Now, Miami is a bilingual city, so it's only fitting that members of its baseball team can speak both English and Spanish. Marlins CEO Derek Jeter has instituted a policy that American-born members of the organization will be required to speak Spanish, just as Latin-born players are taught English. Jeter added, quote, here in Miami, if you don't speak Spanish, you don't fit in. I think it's important. All right. Suns. They were welcoming Liz Cambage and the Wings. Now you can see her there. Cambage set the WNBA record last month with 53 points. And there's Shanae Ogumekwe with the drive and pump fake, and she makes the layup. Jasmine Thomas passes to Ogumekwe, who makes the lay-in and draws the foul. Look at her, playing through the contact to earn the and one. The sun shined 96-76. That's right.
And one, son.
Look who it is. Shanae Ogumekwe, Suns power forward, WNBA All-Star, Stanford grad, and vice president of the WNBA Players Association. Now, that's important. Now, all right. Let's jump right in on what I mentioned her, Liz Cambage, who plays for the Wings, said last night after the game. All right, I think we have those quotes here because she said that her WNBA career going forward, she doesn't know if she's going to come back. She said, I've said this many times. The WNBA doesn't pay my bills. Playing here doesn't pay my bills. We make more money overseas. I'm ready to have next summer off and focus on getting a European contract where it's 10 seasons here worth the pay. All right, now you are the VP of the WNBA Players Association, and you guys have until October 31st to opt out of the CBA that you agreed upon with the league. Like, you hear what Liz is saying about pay. What are the players talking about as it comes to this October 31st deadline?
About 10 hours ago, I was actually having dinner post-game with Liz,
then.
And she was sort of alluding to some of these ideas. But people don't realize she's obviously an Australian national, so the WNBA is not necessarily her home like it is for us. But I think the idea is that the WNBA is the best women's basketball league in the world. Everyone wants to compare it to the NBA, but it's a league that stands on its own. But we're not compensated like the best women's basketball league in the world. There's China. There's Russia. My sister played in Poland. I played in Italy. And those leagues, as she mentioned, could play 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5, up to 10 times your WNBA salary. So what's the incentive for Liz to stay? I mean, she's just thinking about playing full term year round. Yeah. And if she gets injured in the WNBA, it could affect her overseas money. So it's unfortunate that the best league isn't compensated like it, and that's why you have issues like this.
And what are the players actually thinking ahead of that deadline? Is that a deadline that we should be paying attention to because it's a possibility that players can opt out?
Absolutely. Yep. Actually, at WNBA All-Star, Diana Taurasi, Candace Parker were very adamant about pushing the boundaries with this next CBA. For so long, WNBA players have been grateful and told to be grateful, and we're caretakers of a legacy. The league is 22 years old, and it's the only women's professional sports league that has never folded, and we're very grateful. But let me be real, okay, time is money. Yeah. Time is money. And when we are here in the U.S., most people don't understand that we actually are 7 months overseas. When we're here in the U.S., our time is money because we're not home. And also, we're giving our hearts, our minds, our souls, our bodies. I've had 2 injuries to this league, and we feel like we need to be compensated likewise. So there are 3 areas that we are really trying to attack. That's player salaries, that's also player experience, and health and safety.
All right, so you say Tarazi saying push the boundaries, right? And you mentioned those 3 pillars, but does that mean looking at, commercial flying? We obviously saw the huge issue with the canceled game. What are some of the specifically things, like when you talk about more money, how much money are we talking about? Like what can you share with us about what types of things you guys want?
See, that's the thing. There's a lot of ambiguity. We don't really know the financials of the WNBA except be happy if the economics were better, we could pay you more.
Right.
But we believe the ratings are up. They say ticket sales are up. And we also realize that if you want to grow our game, you have to actually invest in the players who are the game. If you invest in the players, those players will maybe not go overseas. They maybe will attract more ticket sales, more sponsorships. Now, I find it strange that the NBA has sponsors, the WNBA has sponsors, and our sponsors are exactly the same as the NBA. Kind of strange. We're a whole different league. We're women that hoop. We should attract female sponsors, youth community empowerment sponsors. So there are a lot of different models that we are brainstorming, hopefully, to grow our game.
Shanae, thank you for your time. Keep killing it on the court.
I'll try my best.
Appreciate it.
Nice highlight, though.
Thank you. I did my best. All right, coming up, one of the best rivalries of the last quarter century is back on the schedule. Sports Center at 6 p.m. Eastern after PTI with Hannah Storm and Michael Eaves. They'll break down the Red Sox chase for the single-season wins record, a look at Coach K's freshman phenoms, and impressions of Deshaun Watson and Jimmy Garoppolo. 6 Eastern, Sports Center, ESPN, and the ESPN app. Tonight's Wednesday night baseball matchup has the Red Sox at Citizens Bank Park to take on the Phillies in the second game of their 2-game series. That game is 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and the ESPN app. So it was, for kids of the 90s, the first of its kind, a rivalry in a sport, one that seemed to capture the attention of more than just us young girls on the AAU circuit who were trying to earn college scholarships. This rivalry, UConn versus Tennessee, transcended the niche. Everyone knew the characters. There was Pat Summitt and Gino Auriemma. And everyone knew the storylines, the yearly showdown between the best programs in the country. But then things changed. A rift between these two coaches. And the end of that rivalry that in a lot of ways served as the tentpole for the women's college basketball season. I mean, no matter what else happened during the year, you knew the cameras would come in, the lights would blind for UConn, Tennessee. And as a player, these things mattered because you were reminded that the game mattered. Then Pat Summitt shut it down on principle to prove an important point that was never really fully understood by casual fans. But things changed again. Pat Summitt got sick, and now she's gone. And whatever toxicity existed between UConn and Tennessee has gradually passed. And now we're back. UConn and Tennessee back on the schedule. The rivalry renewed in 2020. This is not one game, okay? This is the tentpole that helps lift up the rest of women's college basketball. So well done, Holly Warlick and Gino Auriemma. That's a game that everyone wants to watch. All right, that'll do it for Outside the Lines. NFL Live with Wendy Wick Nix is next.